It may be hard to believe, but mountain biking doesn't have to break the bank. We all love the thrills and spills of riding an MTB and the ability to get outdoors on your bike, but it can feel like there's always something to pay for. Whether it's a shiny new part, an uplift day, or just fixing the latest thing that's broken. I'm going to share some of the best budget-friendly ideas to help you save money while still enjoying mountain biking. And some of these tips could even add to your enjoyment of the sport. How can you save money on brake pads? Brake less, you say? Well, thankfully, there are more achievable solutions. Swapping around some of the consumables on your bike is a neat trick to keep your biking expenses in check. For example, with brake pads, if you find the front ones wear out faster than the rear ones, just rotate them by putting the worn ones where they're used least, and some new ones up front so you don't have to replace both sets at the same time. And of course, buying one set at a time will help you with your cash flow. Likewise, when the tread on your front tyre starts to wear, you could stick it on the rear instead, where you don't always need as much grip, and then put the freshie up front for maximum turning and braking traction. This trick is a good way to get the most from your consumables, but when they do wear out completely, we have a tip for what to replace them with. Just because your bike came with higher end parts doesn't mean you have to replace them like for like. What do I mean? Well, when it comes to brake pads and other consumables such as cassettes, chains or cables, consider more affordable alternatives. In many cases, they can work nearly as well as the original equipment fitted by the manufacturer, but end up a whole heap cheaper. For example, if your bike came with 2-piston Shimano XTR brakes, you're not bound to stick exclusively to high-end titanium Shimano XTR disc brake pads, which cost around 28 quid. You could downgrade to more basic offerings from the same brand, like these Shimano RX resin pads, which cost just £10.99, but fit exactly the same. You could even travel off-piste with numerous aftermarket brands. Uber Bike's brake pads to fit Shimano XTR 2-piston brakes start at $8.99 or around $10. Or even UK company Planet X, who offer budget-friendly compatible components like their Jobsworth pads, which start at a staggering £3.49. Excuse the low-res picture, apparently Planet X's web hosting is on a tight budget as well. With a keen eye and a bit of time, you can uncover fantastic deals on platforms such as Facebook Marketplace or eBay. The added bonus is that hunting for bikes can be almost as fun as buying them. Looking for a new bike? Well, consider picking up an X-Hire one. Despite likely having extensive usage, these rigs are maintained by professional mechanics and wear is tracked meticulously. Finding a good one could make a reliable investment even if it doesn't have the shiniest paintwork. If you're part of a group of riding mates, or perhaps you're part of a group ride WhatsApp, someone you know is bound to have parts they want to get rid of. This is a great opportunity to collect a bargain set of cranks, for example, because selling to someone you know cuts out the hassle for the seller of advertising online, and if you don't pay, they know where you live. There is a limit to what you can buy secondhand though. We don't recommend buying secondhand helmets, for example. Apart from the fact that some crash damage can be invisible, they're often stinky. While you can buy cheap, it's important to remember that quality matters, even for the parts of your bike that you don't think about. It's tempting to go with the cheapest option, especially with less glamorous components like pedals, headset bearings, or bottom brackets. But opting for higher upfront investment in better quality parts can pay off in the long run. Expensive headsets and bottom brackets, for example, use high quality bearings, which can last much longer than similar looking BB or headsets, which cost half the price. As the old mantra says, buy cheap, buy twice. Rebuilding and servicing parts does cost money, but it can be much cheaper than buying a whole new part. Choosing products that are easily serviceable may involve more initial expenditure, but should ensure improved longevity. Pedals are a prime example. MBUK's editor JCW reckons it's well worth investing a little extra in pedals that can be stripped and rebuilt. Replacing bearings or fitting new mechanical parts can spare you the need to purchase complete replacements. Knowing where to save and where to invest is a real skill, but with the right knowledge you can save some money without compromising your enjoyment of riding. And speaking of enjoyment, one of the purest joys is learning a new skill. And acquiring basic bike maintenance skills will save you money and make you feel like a boss. There are books, online guides, and even subsidized training courses which cover every job you could conceive of doing on your mountain bike. Start with the basics like puncture repair and setting up brakes and gears, and this could lead to you gaining skills to set up wheels tubeless, replace cables, bleed brakes, true wheels, or even service your own suspension. Learning these skills will not only save money, but will also mean you can learn more about your bike, spotting potential problems before they escalate. A word of caution though, it's wise to entrust jobs above your skill level to the experts. It's easy to inadvertently inflate your expenses by starting a job that you can't finish. These are all tips to help maintain your bike, but if you want to save money, it's important to consider when your bike needs some love. It's not glamorous, but staying on track with service schedules is essential for extending the life of your parts and getting the most out of your bike. Servicing is cheaper than replacement, and looking after your kit will pay off in the long run. For example, dropping £100 on servicing your suspension fork might seem pricey, but it's a far cry from the cost of replacing a worn crown steerer unit and a set of lower leg bushes, which is what can happen if you miss your service intervals. Ask me how I know in the comments. Plus, a well-serviced bike is much faster and safer to ride. It's an investment. But freely rotating frame bearings, a smooth dropper post, and predictable hydraulic disc brakes can make your bike feel like a Rolls Royce on the trails. Whereas compared to a neglected bike, it could sound like a drum kit being thrown down a flight of stairs. And remember that a used but well-maintained bike part can be sold on to help fund an upgrade in the future, whereas a knackered part is only fit for the bin. If you splash out on some technical riding gear, then make sure you look after it. Follow the care instructions and be considerate of your garments. Don't leave that £100 jacket scrunched up in the back of your van after a soggy ride. And don't chuck those ripped waterproof trousers away. Many brands including Outkit, Berghaus, Patagonia and Rafa offer repair services or repair kits for their gear. Resoling riding shoes is another great cash saver, allowing you to keep your comfy old faithfuls whilst injecting a new helping of traction and life into them. On the topic of clothing, why not use the clothes you already own? Sure, MTB specific gear works great and looks amazing, but you don't necessarily need the latest and greatest kit to be comfortable and have fun on your bike, especially when the weather is fine. Other household items can also come in handy on a ride. Generic zip ties have a multitude of uses, from fastening a spare tube to your frame or as a guide to truing wheels. And Gorilla Tape works well when you don't have tubeless rim tape, even if it's a pain to get off afterwards. If you can ride straight from home instead of getting in the car, it's a no-brainer to save a few quid. Plus, it could be a good, gentle warm-up before you reach the trails and head up that gnarly vertical climb you're about to smash. For those living further from the trails, consider lift sharing with your mates and taking turns to be the taxi driver. It's more fun travelling together as the stoke starts as soon as you get in the car. Bike parks can be some of the most entertaining places to spend time on your mountain bike. There's groups of like-minded riders scattered around the park, well-built, properly maintained trails, and they're all laid out for your enjoyment. But uplifts can be expensive, so why not buy a push-up or pedal-up pass instead? It's substantially cheaper than an uplift, but you still get the joy of the park. But of course there is a catch. You have to pedal up. The upside is that by the end of the session, you will be super fit, as well as having saved your wallet. Instead of buying sports drinks, bars and gels, or spending a fortune in trailside cafes, you could start making your own supplies. By investing a bit of time in the kitchen, you can create tasty snacks and drinks to fuel your rides. Explore online recipes for homemade bars and energy drinks, and nip to the local shop so that you can make delicious and cost-effective packed lunches before heading out on the bike. You might even boost your enjoyment of cooking and food prep as you shape your own energy balls or batch cook fulfilling lunches for your next ride. The biggest piece of advice that I can give is don't buy it if you don't need it. MTBing is rife with temptation, with the latest gear and the shiniest anodized parts often luring us in. I'm looking at you, Tom Law. However, if you stop and ask whether that stuff is truly essential, you'll often find that it isn't. After all, the easiest way to save money is to not spend it. Let us know your favourite money-saving tips in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video, click the like button and make sure to subscribe for more. Oh, and if you want to join me in finding out about great value bikes, click the link here. Or batch cook fulfilling lunches for your next day riding. Thanks, Kyle. There's always one.
I'm so sorry. I'm so immature.
I'm feeling the pressure now, the not giggle pressure.